Yes guys, what is going on? Welcome back to my channel. Now we're on episode 5 of coaching words and phrases. We're absolutely flying them out at the moment, so I hope you guys are enjoying the content on the channel. So we're going to be talking about 2 different sort of coaching words slash phrases in today's video. I think one will be quite familiar with you guys. The second one I don't think will be too familiar unless you're in amongst the coaching world. So before we dive into that, I'd like you guys to do a couple of things. First, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be fantastic and it would mean more than you know. And second of all, like the video as well, because why the hell not? Let's get into today's video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so next up we're going to look at something called position and a half. Okay, so this might be, you might have never heard this before, but hopefully I can explain this quite well so you guys have picked up a bit of knowledge, a bit of educational stuff as well in here. So we're going to use Brighton as an example. So they're the greens for the purpose of this video, but we're actually working with the reds. Okay, so we maybe use Manchester United as an example. Okay, so the greens, Brighton are going to be playing out from the back, and Manchester United and the Reds are going to be pressing the ball. Okay, so we've got the Reds set up in quite a sort of narrow position, making sure they can, you know, affect certain things that might happen as the play sort of evolves. So Brighton are going to play out from the back, play out to the centre half. Okay, straight away, the opposite 7 is obviously narrows this side of the ball. So if the ball did go out to the 6, he can maybe go and affect the 6. From there, if it goes out to the 3, then he can go and press to the 7. Obviously the balls can now come out to the 5. Again, now we'll be concentrating at sort of the number 11. The 9 initially was in a good position, so obviously he split. And likewise, obviously the goalkeeper went either way, so then therefore the 9 has to be split as well. Okay, so now if you look really, really closely, the distance between the 11 and the 2 is slightly larger than the 11 and the 4. Okay, so the 11 is kind of doing 2 jobs, kind of similar to the 9 as well. We'll come to the 9 shortly. So what the 11 is saying is, I want you to play that pass out wide over here. He wants you to play that pass out here because the 2 has less options on the ball. It's more difficult to make the passes. You can't give it to maybe the players that can really hurt the team from that position. So that's why he's given a bigger space in this position here. Okay, but he's also teasing the number 5 to think, do you know what? There's enough space to fizz it into the 4, but the 11 is clever enough that he can, you know, give a smaller distance, but also tempt him as well, lure him into thinking he can play that pass. But the 11 knows that the 4 is probably the player that can hurt the team more than maybe the 2. Obviously, that is team dependent. So that's kind of what position and a half is. It's kind of doing, the 11 is doing that job against the 2, but he's also doing the job on the 4 as well. It's kind of in that tempting position, maybe have his short slightly up, in a crouched position, ready to sort of go and press the ball. So the body language in the 11 as well is kind of can dictate as well what the opposition kind of does. You know, if that does go into the 4 in there, he's got a short distance to go and affect it, and hopefully maybe go nick the ball, and then you've got numbers in and around it to go and sort of press and create a chance in the final third. So that's kind of really what the position and a half is. So if that pass, like I said, is obviously goes into the 4, you've got the 9 that's affecting the 4 as well, but also he's affecting the number 1. If it goes back into the number 1, he can maybe go squeeze in here, and then maybe the rest of the team go and back him up. Likewise, if it does go to the 1, then maybe everyone just resets and goes back into their position like it was a goal kick before. So, you know, that 9 might creep across, try and affect that. Then, like I said, the 11 might be affecting here, so therefore you have to go backwards. So it's very much making sure you're in positions, what I call position and a half, where you're really tempting someone to go one way, but you're giving them enough sort of a tease, if you like, to go in another direction, you know, i.e. going into the 4. So that's what position and a half is. Can you do one position, but also maybe do half of another position and kind of lure in the opposition to maybe make a mistake into a bit of a trap as well.
You can see the Chelsea centre-backs opening wide and Jorginho dropping in between them to try and pick the ball up off the goalkeeper. Liverpool pressed high with their 3 forwards. Mane, Firmino and Salah positioned themselves in between the Chelsea defenders to stop them from playing out. Here we can see the Chelsea goalkeepers about to play a pass out to Alonso on the left wing, And Salah has placed himself in between the three Chelsea. Here we can see Liverpool set up in the middle of the pitch. Three midfielders all in the line and three forwards pressing the back four of Chelsea. Here we can see Liverpool's intentions to prevent that pass to Jorginho in midfield. The three midfielders, they're obviously covering the three midfielders of Chelsea. Henderson just behind Jorginho, Milner with Kante, and Wijnaldum is just covering in front of Kovacic, who's just out of the picture there.
So next up, we're going to have a look at how to play as a double pivot and what the explanation of that is as well. So we've got the team set up in a 1-4-2-3-1 formation. Okay, so with a double pivot, it's obviously quite similar to the single pivot, but obviously not quite the same. Typically, you'll play in a 1-4-2-3-1 formation, or you could play in a 1-4-4-2 formation as well. So you've got that formation, okay? But we're going to play it as a 1-4-2-3-1, okay? So again, we've got the goalkeeper set up with the ball. We're going to disperse, get the 3 and the 11 a bit higher, 9, 10 a bit higher, 7, 2 higher as well. And we're also going to have the 5 and the 6 as well, dispersing, okay? So again, we're going to be looking at the 4 and the 8 in this sort of double pivot explanation. So what we might do here from a goal kick, again, the 4 might go and play a little bit higher, and then the 8 might come in here. So you're kind of offset. So what I mean by offset is, guys, we're not on the same sort of passing line, if you like, on the passing lane. We're kind of offset, so it kind of gives the team a little bit of a balance as well. So the 1 will play out to maybe the 8, and immediately he might scan his left shoulder. Being a right-footed player, could wrap that round straight away into the number 4. Okay, it just depends on what the opposition is doing as well and the types of players these players are. Talking of the types of players, typically I would say the 4 and the 8 shouldn't be identical players. So for example, you don't want to necessarily have maybe a Toni Kroos and a Busquets, for example. They're very, very similar type players. Just to balance it off, you maybe want a technical player who's really, really comfortable on the ball, maybe has a little bit less physical capacity, and then vice versa. You've got someone that's got a lot of physical capacity, can carry the ball really, really well, and has a little bit less technical quality. So someone like maybe a Frankie de Jong, who could be the number 8 in this instance here, and then maybe a Declan Rice as a number 4. That would be kind of a nice balance, if you like, in that situation. Okay, so another example of playing in this situation here would be if we just sort of maybe move the team up slightly higher. Just do that slightly higher, okay. So maybe the 3 has the ball here, out wide. And you've got the 4 and the 8 just in here. So maybe the 3's already bounced with the 8. And what's going to happen is, we're kind of typically in this type of position. The 3 can't go forwards, it can't go lateral, so he's going to go backwards. He's going to go into the number 5 in here. And then maybe in this instance here, the 4 might be the spare man. So maybe the 2 goes and plays a little bit higher, 6 comes across, and then the 4 goes into this position here and kind of creates another back 4, but being sort of part of the back 4, and then the 2 becomes sort of part of the midfield, if you like. So then you can play the 5 to the 6, the 6 to the 4, and you can play that way. Again, everyone will shift across and kind of support as we go along. So there's another way you could kind of play as a double pivot, just making sure you can really sort of make sure you're kind of giving your team options in possession, not hiding behind players, making sure you've got plenty of passing lanes for one another. So we've incorporated some of the opposition in the team here as well, just to make it a bit more realistic, and so you guys can kind of see what the double pivots, again, the 4 and the 8 in here, we're going to be concentrating on what their roles could be out of possession as well. So we've got the opposition, number 4 on the ball. Straight away, there's a massive passing lane in here that hasn't been blocked off. So he could fizz one into the 9, and maybe he can play a quick 1-2 with the 10, and straight away there could be an end goal. So something that the 10 could do immediately, maybe the 10's been really, really lazy and can't get across, so that allows that pass in there. So it could be that the 8 kind of narrows up even further and blocks that passing lane into the 9 in there. That's one thing they could do, so making sure they block that passing lane. There could be, the build-up could be going to the number 3 over here. That's when everyone kind of comes across, and making sure, again, maybe that pass into the number 10 is blocked off from the number 4. So very much the 4 and the 8 out of position will be kind of sliding across the pitch, making sure the passing lanes are blocked off into the 9 and 10. Obviously, it depends on what the formation the opposition are playing, but making sure they kind of have a little 4 square there, if you like, a little foursome as well, making sure they kind of block that central area, because you want to make sure they've got high numbers in there and block off the opposition playing through the central areas, and sort of allow them to play out wide in these areas here where it's difficult to create chances. So yeah, the 4 and the 8 out of possession is very much blocking passing lanes, screening and sliding, and just making sure maybe every now and then as well they can maybe go and press the ball as well, just depending again on the formation of the opposition and the instructions of what the manager's given to the 4 and 8.
Phillips, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips form the double pivot. Notice how during the build-up plays one of them would drop down between the... Obviously, this requires both players to have a lot of chemistry to be able to distribute such roles and understand the positioning of each other. Depending on the pressing status of the opposition and also on which side of the pitch would the team like to build the attack from, both players may switch these roles. So someone would perform the press while the other would mark any opposition between the midfield and defensive lines. You do not want to give the opposition the ball behind your double pivot. So as you are applying the high pressure, you are taking some risk in breaking the organization. That's why the immediate coverage to that risk is the man-to-man marking from the other player who is not applying this pressing. Try to take the advantage from the pressure that the front 3 are already making and catch any opposition off guard in the midfield. If you are the one that will be applying the press, make sure to block any passing lanes behind you and force the opposition to pass it backwards if you did not intercept the ball. If you are not the player who will apply the pressure, quickly look for any movement from the opposition between the lines and mark them.